When it comes to retirement planning, the big question is how much income can you pull out of your account every single year without that fear of running out of money? The long-standing rule has always been 4%, but Dave Ramsey has recently talked about 8%, and that you have a lot more flexibility there pulling out of money. But there is one catch we're going to tell you about coming up. We'll find out if Ryan agrees or disagrees and what his stance is on income planning at Black Oak Asset Management. Welcome in. Glad to have you on the show once again. Ryan, good to see you. I know you've had a relationship with Dave Ramsey for a long time, and I know that you guys have worked closely, and I know you talk all the time about a lot of his financial guidance is great. And there is some, though, that doesn't apply to you. So I want to kind of break down this idea of 4% versus 8%, because this would probably catch some eyes on the headline. People seeing it and going, wow, I can actually pull out more money every year. This is a very nice surprise.
Yeah. We were part of the Smart Investor Pro program for a long time. And yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a high school teacher, listening to his podcast, and everybody always asked me, I'd have earbuds in. They're like, what are you listening to? And I'd tell them, and they're like, yeah, you're such a nerd. And anyway, so I took his classes. I used to teach his Financial Peace University. So yeah, a lot of the pillars that he teaches, the principles he teaches, it's hard to argue with. But yeah, there's some nuances that, I'm not going to say, hey, I disagree. But, when as an advisor, when you're working with each individual person or family, that's my job to take care of those individuals and what's best for them. And so I get it. Dave's talking to millions and millions of people all at once. So it does have to be more blanket type advice. But again, the getting out of debt and getting an emergency fund, to me, you can't argue that. Maybe some of the steps after that need some massaging or changing or whatever. But again, the pillars are hard to argue.
Yeah, for sure. And in this piece specifically that he talks about how much you can put in your retirement accounts, I know not every financial advisor is going to agree with this. So we're going to kind of get your take on this as well. So let's just kind of start off with what he's actually recommending. And so Dave Ramsey recommends an 8% withdrawal rate. Yes, 8%, which is, again, double kind of the conventional guidance, because the S&P 500 has historically averaged around a 10% return annually. But the catch here, Ryan, is that in his view, this only works if your entire portfolio is invested in stock. So just your initial reaction to this piece of advice.
Yeah, I mean, and not all clients are going to want to be 100% in the stock market, whether it is the S&P or whatever index you're looking at. Not every client is comfortable with that. Every stage of life is different. Not saying that people can't be 100% in the stock market. That's fine as long as they're willing to take on that liability. But as an advisor, as a CFP, I have to do what's in their best interest. So we have to really pinpoint what that looks like from a risk standpoint. And then, so you got guardrails. I tell people you have guardrails on the downside and guardrails on the upside. And usually from a math standpoint or a standard deviation standpoint, you're going to be almost, with mathematical certainty, you're going to be somewhere in that range. Obviously, there's outliers. There's situations where the market does really, really good or really, really bad that could go outside that standard deviation. So we have to pinpoint that and figure out what that is. And not everybody, especially retirees, are going to be 100% in the stock market and be able to take on that type of volatility. So again, that's our job to monitor that and really know what the risk tolerance and even risk capacity is for each individual client or family.
So this 4% rule, let's talk about where it came from and just kind of in general how you use it in your own practice. Because I think most people are familiar with it, but for those who aren't, just a little bit of the history on it. And then, how does this actually play into your conversations every day?
Yeah, it's been kind of a standard rule for a while. I think it was in the 90s, maybe 80s. Sorry, I don't know the exact date of it, but it's commonly known as the 4% rule. So whatever your nest egg is, you can take 4% out of that dollar amount of the nest egg, and you really shouldn't worry about running out of money, because with the historical returns, whether you have a 60-40, stock bond split, that the 4% rule is a comfortable withdrawal rate, and you really shouldn't worry about running out of money, because obviously, hopefully your returns supersede that 4%. So ideally, it'd be kind of keeping your nest egg intact. If it's $1 million, and sure, it's going to deviate some higher than that, some lower than that, but that's kind of what you're looking for. So it was kind of again, going back to blanket advice, it's kind of a general rule. And I don't even like using the word rule, but the 4% rule is what it's referred to as, and it's different for everybody. It's some people it's way less than that. Some people it's going to be higher than that. I don't know. I don't really 8% is pretty high. I don't think we really have anyone who does that, but it all depends on what your income needs are, because you may have a really good Social Security benefit. Say it's a husband, wife, and they have two really good Social Security benefits and they don't have any debt, going back to Dave Ramsey's principles, everything's paid off, no mortgage, no consumer debt, nothing. Well, if you have two incomes coming in from Social Security, and I have plenty of clients that they're somewhere around $9,000-$10,000 a month, well, that may be plenty for what they need. And their withdrawal rate may be zero, or it may be just what their required minimum distributions are going to be. But then we may have some that retire at age 75. So their lifespan, mathematically speaking, is going to be shorter as far as how long they need to pull money out. So then that's where your percentage could be much, much higher. So it all depends on income needs. It depends on your nest egg. It depends on when you retire. So a lot of caveats and variables there that we have to weigh in. So it's going to be different for everybody. But if you want to do quick back of the napkin type of math, 4% is kind of a general rule, but it seems that some out there are saying, oh, you can go closer to 5%. There's some out there that say even lower than 4%. So it all depends.
Yeah, and I think the creator, I don't know if you mentioned this, but he's since bumped it up a little bit more from the 4%, the guy that actually originally came up with this premise. So he's even bumped up a little bit, but specifically 8%, Ryan, what do you see as a big concern with this math? Because obviously if 8% was a standard everybody could go by, everybody would love to go do that, right? I'd love to be able to spend more money and not worry as much. But where do you see some of the concerns with this 8% math?
Yeah, so some of the concerns, and this is where I need to, I don't know if the right word is debunk or poke holes a little bit, because I used to teach Dave Ramsey's personal finance to my high school kids. There was a high school curriculum. I taught it. Well, there's a chart that has like two brothers, and it shows like how, the time value of money. The earlier you start, the more money you're going to have. So it has one brother starting at a certain age and only putting in a certain amount and then stopping at a certain age. And then that other brother starts when that other one stops, and continues on until retirement and never catches up. The math and the principles all make sense. And he would use 12% because, he's saying his funds have averaged 12%, which I don't disagree with. And that's over a long period of time. But if you're going to get 12%, you have to be willing to take on the risk to lose 30% or even more, especially during the, 08, 09 recession that we had. From peak to trough, it was close to 50%, the S&P. So that takes a long time to recover from that, even with great return. So you have to remember, if you're going to take on full stock market risk and there is a pullback, you're still pulling out that 8% per year. So if the market is losing 30 and you're pulling 8, well, you've lost 38%. So to recoup that, your returns have to be much, much higher to recoup that. So that's where the math to me doesn't work out, because again, most of our clients, especially our retirees who are in decumulation phase, who are taking money out, being 100% in the stock market it's probably, again, not going to give blanket advice, but probably not a prudent portfolio for them. Again, depending on their makeup, depending on what their income needs. Do they have a pension? Do they have Social Security? Some may not. So there's just so many different variables, but that's kind of where the planning comes in and the financial plan comes in to really to lay out that roadmap to see what that looks like, and to see. And I have very few clients that go, oh, I need to take this percent out. It's like, no, what is our income needs? And then we kind of back into that to see if it's sustainable over their retirement.
Yeah, that's the key, right? It's different for everyone. You want to have a plan. And again, Ryan is a certified financial planner. Happy to sit down and discuss these things with you. All the contact information is down in the show description for you to make it easy for you. But this is one you want to get right, Ryan. I mean, right. This is a big part of the planning that you do. And again, this is something that's tough to do on your own. Even just kind of going off general guidance like this, you would just assume, hey, Dave Ramsey or other financial professionals that are giving out kind of some blanket advice like this, it applies to you, but that's not always necessarily the case.
Yeah, because it depends on what type of accounts you have too. Do you have mostly pre-tax? Do you have some tax-free money? Do you have some taxable funds or accounts out there. So a lot depends on not only just the withdrawal rate, but like how much taxes are you going to pay on these different types of accounts. So that's where we run scenarios on, hey, we're not just going to focus on one account and then just pull from that one. If you have a variety of accounts, so if you have tax diversified accounts, then you can kind of pick and choose what accounts you're pulling from to try to keep you in a very favorable tax rate. So obviously, if you're all pre-tax and Social Security, you don't have a whole lot of wiggle room. So, our older clients, that's pretty typical. But as clients are starting to enter retirement, they do have those brokerage or taxable accounts. They do have some Roth money because finally they started putting money into a Roth IRA, or they finally got access to a Roth 401k. So to be able to pull from different accounts, it just makes your Social Security more favorable as far as taxes go. What tax bracket you're in, and if you can even stay in certain tax brackets, even that taxable account could potentially be tax-free depending on what your taxable income is. So it's a lot of nuances and maneuvering, especially when you do get to retirement.
Yeah, a lot to think about. Again, get in touch. This is a conversation worth having right before you start pulling from your accounts. Your withdrawal rate could be 4%, could be 8%, somewhere in between, maybe even outside that range. Really, it is different and it varies for everyone, built depending on your specific life and what you're trying to accomplish. And again, that's something you can do with the team in Black Oak Asset Management, have those discussions and do that today. You can take advantage of that free consultation with Ryan and the team there and get that process running. But good advice. And again, something to think about as you're getting into close to retirement and thinking about income planning a little bit more. This could be good, maybe not, but there is a little bit of credence to it, but hopefully this gives you a little more clarity on how to get to that number and how a team like Black Oak Asset Management can help you do that. But Ryan, as always, appreciate your time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely.